Okay, thank you very much, Praveen. Thank you again for inviting me to speak at this webinar. Very excited to be here. Let me just see, maybe I can show my face so that you guys can see who's talking here. But yeah, let me just also see if I can share my screen with you. Okay, there we go. Let's also just move this along. Okay, there you go. Already. Great. Okay. Thank you again for inviting me to this webinar. I'm very happy to be able to present to you GIS Cloud and our platform, what we do, and how we enable you to basically integrate your desktop solution that you're using with our cloud-based platform. So let me just get started. Okay, so first of all, what will we be covering today? Just a brief introduction at the start to tell you a bit more about GIS Cloud, obviously, about who we are, what kind of a platform we are offering, and also how you can use it to suit your use case, regardless of what it is that you're doing. And then later on, we're going to focus a bit more on the desktop and online integration itself. So how you can use our plugin for QGIS, our GIS Cloud Publisher, and also how you can use our GIS Cloud Web Feature Service to fully integrate your workflow and have a complete online desktop solution. Afterwards, I'll also show everything in a live demo, and I guess we'll also have some time left over for a Q&A session so that you can ask me whatever it is that you like. Okay, so let's get started. What is GIS Cloud to start with? Well, in short, GIS Cloud, as it says here, is a collaborative mapping solution for the entire workflow of your organization. So I presume that a lot of you guys are in the GIS industry. You guys know that it's important to include lots of different spatial information into any decision that you make. So the only question really is, how do you do that? And the, let's call it, issue comes up is that not everyone is as proficient as you might be, and they don't really need to be. So we have a lot of different potential users here, a lot of different knowledge bases, from all the way from GIS experts who are able to use any GIS tool that comes in their hands, to someone who's maybe a complete novice, a non-GIS person, but they still need a way to benefit from the data that you are presenting them. So traditionally, how it was kind of always used is that any GIS tool really is kind of just for the GIS department of any particular organization or company. It's used by just a small group of users, and I think we can all agree that oftentimes these tools, they come at a very steep learning curve. However, since we know that the data itself is not just useful to the GIS analyst who creates the data and who manages it, but also to a number of different people who will consume this data. So the question is, how do we present this data to them in an environment that's approachable for them and very user-friendly, but it also serves the exact purpose that they need? So if you've used a GIS system in your life, you've probably then seen this. What our goal with GIS Cloud when we first made it, more than a decade ago, was to fix this, where you're kind of just lost with all of the tools that you have, with something as simple as this. So we've created a cloud platform for collaborative mapping. And of course, having the GIS tools in the cloud also means that you're not really investing a ton of money into any kind of, hardware or infrastructure, servers, all of that, and also, of course, on the maintenance. But you can focus on what's kind of most important here is for you to be able to share this data with others, whether that's kind of within your maybe department, within your office, or if it's with someone external, like the public or the client or whoever else needs that data in order to, of course, make their decisions and make their business workflow as efficient as possible. You'll see later on how you can take the data that you already have in QGIS and make kind of a complete workflow from it, but of course you can then add more to this. So how are we able to make sure that you are able to collaborate? So what we've done is we've created 4 main applications, 4 main web apps that you can use, and you can see that they are intended for different user types depending on what someone's role is within an organization or a workflow and what their needs are basically. So for those users that are maybe a bit more advanced, we have what's called a map editor. Map editor is our kind of main GIS in the cloud, our main application for management of your data, where you can upload your data, you can create new data there. You can, of course, share, make, manage your maps. And it also provides some of the basic GIS functionalities and basic GIS tools that any workflow might need. So it's not necessarily just for the experienced user. Even someone who doesn't have any previous GIS knowledge would be able to use it because they wouldn't be as overwhelmed with so many choices, but still their needs would be covered. What we call our flagship application is our mobile data collection app. As the name would suggest, of course, it's an application that allows you to collect your data in the field. You can use it on your phone or your tablet, whatever it is. And what it does is enable you to both see the information that has already been prepared for you in the field. So if you need information, let's say about, which pipe it is in front of you or where the nearest traffic light is that you need to inspect, you can see all of that information, but also it allows you to then communicate with the office as well, because you're able to collect the data and then send that data in real time to the office, to other colleagues, other users who need that information. Another great thing is that the mobile data collection app, it does work online and offline. So even if you're in a place where you don't have maybe great self-service, you can feel free to collect your data and you can then later upload it. For the decision makers, they need a way to privately view the data, but in, of course, a much more user-friendly way than just sending them a shapefile and having them look at it in QGIS, for example. And for that, we have specifically made Map Viewer. So Map Viewer is our application for private data viewing. It can be fully customized, whether that's simply adding your own branding to it, or if you want to kind of go a step further and create maybe something like a dashboard for the person who needs that information, that can also be a possibility. Of course, the emphasis here is on keeping this data private, because you will still need to have that control over it. You still need to be able to make sure that only the users that are allowed access have the access to any maps or data that you want to share. But if you do have any need of sharing the data publicly, in that case, we also have what's called a map portal. You can see it here below. And it's a great tool to share your maps publicly and maybe engage the citizens, or if you just want to share share your maybe business plan or something like that to the public, to other users, and that's a very simple way to do it. You don't need to have any developer knowledge to customize these applications. You don't have to write a single line of code, and all of that can be done through simple builder or through simple app options. Of course, you can see that this can all be applied to any number of different use cases. So it's not just, for example, we're specifically making an application for vegetation management. It's not like that, because the platform is quite flexible. You can use it for whatever you'd like. So for example, the data collection, since it's based on a form that you create, you can add anything you'd like to that form. If you need to collect data about traffic lights, you simply create a form that will reflect that data. If you need to collect data about water pipelines or the sewage or the drainage or electricity poles or anything like that, you simply create a form that's specific for your needs and for your use case. Of course, one thing that I hadn't mentioned, but that's kind of the whole point behind the platform, is that all of those applications that you can see here, they are connected. So what does that mean? That means that if you create and manage your map in Map Editor and you share it with someone and they're accessing it through Map Viewer, any change that you make will be directly visible on their end as well. In addition to that, for the data collectors, for example, if they're collecting data and they're working online, in the online mode, then any data that they collect will be right away visible on your end as well. So to give you a few examples from our users, of course, this is just a small portion because we do work with people from all sorts of industries, all sorts of GIS backgrounds, from small businesses to large corporations to government agencies and institutions, municipalities, cities, etc. And you can see here we work on all continents as well. So this is just a small selection of different use cases, from field work in a water utility company. For example, in this case, they're using our data collection tool to inspect manholes, or to roadwork maintenance, to forestry, vegetation management, to preventing electricity theft, for example, to some of the more humanitarian projects. For in this case, for example, it's an NGO that's specifically working on providing safe, clean drinking water to a number of different countries. Of course, I do welcome you to check out our blog and to read in depth about these, because while all of these, they may look completely different, they are all in kind of different industries, different use cases. But what they have in common is that they all recognize that, spatial information is something that's required to basically have everything running. And they do also understand that the way to do that, to make those decisions, is by collaboration. And the simplest way to do that is to simply have your tools in the cloud. So how do we ensure that you are then able to integrate the online tools that you might be using, for example, GIS Cloud in this case, of course, to a desktop tool? So perhaps you already have some kind of a workflow that involves a desktop tool, in this case specifically, of course, QGIS. So you might already be used to creating all sorts of analysis, making the maps, and then maybe you do have a way of publishing it, but if not, you maybe need a way to simply be able to share that map with others. Previously, I know that a lot of users come to us, and how they've been doing up until now is they created a map and then they simply created a PDF of the map and then sent that PDF, or simply printed out a map and sent the field crew to the field with the printout map. But of course, the data is dynamic. You want to have up-to-date information, and you're basically losing a lot of time with the back and forth. And in some cases, it just doesn't make sense to, share shapefile with someone and have them kind of open it up on their end. They might not have the necessary tools to open it. So you need a very simple and fast way to share that data with others. So as it says here, how do we ensure that? Well, we do that in two ways, and specifically in GIS Cloud. So what we've developed is two different solutions for two different approaches to this question. So the first one is, what do you do if you have, what do you do if you have all of the data ready? You're working on a map in QGIS and you want to publish it and have it be available to others. Well, the simplest way is to use our QGIS publisher, or publisher for QGIS. I just call it publisher, so just so you know. But what does the publisher basically enable you to do? So it takes any project that you've created in QGIS, any map that you've created, and it simply copies everything into GIS Cloud, into your account over there. And that way you can then easily share this data with a number of different users, a group of users. You want to share it publicly, you want to share it privately, however it is that you want. So the key really thing is that allows you to transfer everything from your QGIS project, or even if you're working on like a large project, you have something that's quite heavy, you maybe just need to share just a portion of it, you can do that as well. The benefit of this is that this way also preserves all of the symbology that you have set in QGIS. That's one thing that users really wanted to do, since maybe they've spent quite a lot of time in QGIS making the map perfect, and now they would have to recreate it in an online tool. Well, with the publisher, everything gets transferred for you, so you don't have to recreate the map from scratch. What it enables you in addition is to make sure that any change that you do make to the data or to the project in QGIS, you're able to then also sync it with the data that you have uploaded and simply update it to, let's say, the latest version. But if you do wish to have separate versions, so version control, let's say, you are able to then publish the same data as just a completely separate map and have them both available online and available to share. Of course, I mentioned you can share both the public maps, public projects, and also private projects, so you still have full control over who has access to it. So just the fact that you've uploaded your map from QGIS to GIS Cloud, it doesn't mean that everyone can now see it. You still have that full control over it, and you can still define the users that do need access to it versus the users that don't have access to it, obviously. You'll see when we get to the live demo portion, what are some of the additional options that you have and how you can use them. We'll go over some of the use cases and possible ways that you can utilize this plugin for your purpose. And of course, one thing that I haven't mentioned, but this plugin itself is free for QGIS. So of course you can download it, you can try it out, and it works for QGIS 2 and above, so 2 and 3, and anything that's above that. The other option, so we've covered now how you can transfer your data when you're working in a desktop tool, how you can transfer this data to an online tool, so very simple. But what happens when you have data in GIS Cloud? So perhaps you've been using the data collection tool to collect different information, but now you want to have this data available in QGIS. So we've also made a new feature for that to enable this kind of full circle where you have also data on the desktop and in the cloud. And how we've done it is by enabling you to create a web feature service from any map that you create in GIS Cloud. So basically, you're able to consume GIS Cloud data, so data that you store over there in QGIS. Now, of course, the great thing about this is that you can share this data with others who might not be using QGIS. So it's you're able to then share it regardless of the platform they're using. So a couple of most important features that this allows you to do is, of course, see any data that you've collected in QGIS or any other platform that you're working with. It allows you to share your data in a public way, but also in a private way. So you can still control whether someone can see the map or not. And in addition to that, since you're using Web Feature Service, you also have the option to then edit and analyze the data in the other in other platforms. Specifically, in this case, we're going to be showing you how to do this in QGIS, but you are able to then do the same thing in other platforms as well. So you have kind of a full circle. You maybe had some data previously in QGIS that was uploaded to the cloud to be able to maybe support the field crew who is collecting the data for you. And then the data that the field crew collects, you are also able to consume in the desktop. And that means you have access to some of the more robust and more advanced analysis tools that a GIS tool such as QGIS offers, while you're still having that one single point of truth, one source for all of the data, so you don't have any duplicates, you don't have any obsolete information, you don't have old information, because of course everything is done real time, so that you can also see if we're talking here about also some kind of a data collection, you can see where the crew is, what they've collected, and you can use that information to then maybe coordinate them further if that's necessary. So, okay, those are the kind of two key features, two key tools that we'll be covering today. And now is then a good time to switch over to our live demo. So what I'll be showing you today is, first of all, the QGIS publisher. I'll show you how you can easily transfer your data from QGIS into GIS Cloud and what you can do with the data afterwards. But we'll also see the kind of reverse, so that you can have like a two-way street between the desktop tool and the online tool to have like a complete workflow. Okay, so let me just switch over to QGIS. Now, I've prepared some data here already. Very simple. I have a zoning layer, and I also have a street layer. And in the back, I've just put our OpenStreetMap so that we can see where things are. So let's say that we are maybe a government institution. We have our dedicated zoning areas here that we've devised, and this is something that we want to share to the public. Perhaps we have a legal obligation to provide some of this data for the public and have them be able to obtain it. You might have like someone who's developing a new residential area, and they need to know what the zoning is in that particular city, or maybe you want to show them the school districts, or whether that's areas with different tax policies, or maybe it's a completely different set of data, demographics, environmental indicators. So any use case here is really applicable. Any type of data can be used here. In this case, we have a simple vector data, so polygons, and we also have this line layer as well, but points, rasters, that can all be uploaded into the cloud. You can even upload this OpenStreetMap base map, although you can add the base map later on in GIS Cloud as well, and you even have a few more options. So that's what I usually prefer to do. As I mentioned before, the great thing about the publisher for QGIS is that it will transfer also any type of symbology that you've set. So in this case, we've set our zoning based on what kind of zoning it is. So you can see you have plenty of different options here, urban districts, downtown, commercial areas, etc. And we've spent some time working on this, setting up the colors, the hatches, and all of that. And we want to easily transfer it to our map editor. For streets, for example, if I zoom in a bit further, you'll see that we've also set up the labels. So that's also something that will be transferred into GIS Cloud as well. So not just the symbology, but also the labels as well will be transferred. So how do we do that? Well, as we mentioned, we have our little GIS Cloud publisher for QGIS, our plugin that you can easily find either in just the plugin repository over here, or you can find some instructions on our web pages as well. You will need to log in. So before you actually start, you will need to create an account, but no worries about that. You can simply go to our webpage and start your trial over there. It'll take you maybe like a minute. So once you're logged in, you'll be able to publish your map to GIS Cloud. And there are a couple of things that you can then choose. So you don't necessarily have to publish everything, and you can choose whether you're publishing something privately or you want to make it public as well. So in our case, I'll go ahead and turn off our base map here. And let's say that we will only share our visible layer. So you can see the first thing you can choose is whether you're publishing everything or just a portion of your data. In this case, of course, it's just a simple one with 2 layers, but if you have a large project and you just want to share a small portion of it, you don't have to create a completely new project to do so. You can just choose only visible layers. So we can click on publish our map, and of course we should define the name. So I'll just call it Fort Collins map, and we can decide whether it's public or private, and let's keep it private for now. And we can just click on publish map. It takes just a few seconds. Of course, it depends on how many layers you have. It depends on, what your internet speed is, because ultimately you are uploading this data to the cloud. So it might take a few seconds. Okay, and there you go. So our map is ready. As I mentioned, you are able to update the data if you make any kind of change here in QGIS. But in order to do that, you just need to save it first. I'll go ahead and say cancel for now. I don't have to update it, but we can later on. And we can simply click on Open Map in GIS Cloud. And actually, let's go over here and just refresh our map editor since I'm already logged in over here. And we have our Fort Collins map. You can see I've uploaded this just a minute ago. And there we go. That's our map with all of our data and all of the kind of symbology that we've set. Everything is still here. Now, what I'm missing here is my base map, because I mentioned I always like to add it from here because I have a couple of more options than just the OpenStreet that I have over there. So let's maybe set a Mapbox one. Okay, let's wait a few seconds and let's just go back to our layer. I'll turn off the streets for just a second so that you can see. So any symbology that we've set previously in QGIS, so all of the hatches, all of the colors, all of the classification that we've set up, everything got transferred here into GIS Cloud. And if we open our base maps here, we can, streets over here, we can see our labels have gotten transferred as well. So you can see it's basically the same thing, except we have like a different base map over here. So pretty simple, pretty quick to do, and all of your data is now stored in your account. And from here, of course, if you've made your map public, then you're pretty much set. You can maybe take this, embed this map into your web page, or if you like, you can also create like a public portal with it and share the data to maybe a broader audience, and also provide them some additional features that you don't have in just the embedded map. If you are working with a private map, so if this was something that you want to privately share with someone, whether that's with your colleague or with maybe a client or anyone else, you can then share this map to other users. Of course, if we're sharing it privately, then we also just have to make sure that the other user has an account here as well. And I'll share it here with my other account so that you can see. So now we've given the other user the permission to view this data. So if they log into GIS Cloud, they will be able to see this map. And in addition, if I want, I can give them some additional permissions. So maybe I want them to be able to export the data if they have to have it, stored locally as well for whatever purpose. We can just simply give them some additional permissions. So even if you do share your data or your layer with someone, you still have that additional control over what kind of permission they have, what can they do with the data. And this is something that you can set on a layer level as well, so not just on the map. If you maybe want to restrict one of the layers, you simply don't give them the necessary permissions to do that. Okay, and of course, any data that we have, it's all visible in our map editor. We can review it, and if needed, we can also make this data editable. So if, for example, we want to prepare it for data collection, maybe you want to know what additional activities are happening in certain zones, we can then create some additional layers and add them to our map. Okay, so that kind of covers the first part. The first part, when we want to share our data with someone, since we've been already working on it on our desktop. But what happens if we have some data that we've been working on here in GIS Cloud in Map Editor, and we want to make sure that that data is accessible also in QGIS, in any other desktop tool, or if we simply want to be able to collect it. So for that, I've prepared another map. So it's the same area, so we'll be able to see it in QGIS in the same way. So what we have prepared here is parcel data for just one area of the same city. We've prepared the map over here, so it is ready to use as is. So we can see we have all of the parcel information. We have set up some kind of symbology over here. We have set up a tooltip so that we can see the information that we need. And if I click on any of my features here, you can see we can also edit this if needed. But we also have here a layer called incident reporting. So we want to make sure that the field crew who is kind of going around town, they're inspecting different areas, they're seeing whether there's maybe any issues in the city. They want to be able to provide some feedback to anyone who is in the office who manages that area so that they can respond to whatever's happening in the field. So for example, if you're a field worker and you're maybe fixing a burst pipe, you of course want to know if there's any other utility there, so you'll just look on the map, but you also want to make sure that the team in the office knows what's happening, and you can do that easily by simply then submitting a new point, and the people in the office will be able to see it right away. So what I have here is just a simple layer called incident reporting. And on that layer, we've added a simple form that we can use for data collection in the field. Of course, this is something that can be used then with the field crew if you share it with them. But we can take a look over here and see how it looks. So we've simply added a short little form, and let's say we want to add a new incident here. We want to report a new incident in this location. So what we're going to do is, let's say that this is a waste infrastructure incident, and we have another set of questions here now that we know what type of incident it is. And let's say we have some litter over here. You can include a photo if you'd like, and we also have this nifty little date tool, and we can easily then add a new point to that area. So why am I showing you this is, of course, I want to show you first how this looks like when you're just working within GIS Cloud. But let's now take this and let's take it to our desktop tool. So let's see how we can then utilize this information that we've collected here, or maybe in the field as well. And let's see what we can do in QGIS with it. So as we mentioned before, to enable this integration between the desktop and the online, we've created, or we've enabled web map and web feature service. So basically this enables you to create a link either for web map service or web feature service from the map and the data that you create within GIS Cloud. And you can then, of course, utilize this URL, this link in QGIS or any other desktop GIS tool that you're using. So in this case, we're going to be looking at web feature service because we also want to be able to make changes to the data that we have there. So what we're going to do is very simply copy the link that we've created. And you can see the map in this case is private. Of course, we can do the same with a public map, but it's important to note if you do want to enable someone else to edit the data, you should also share the map with them and give them the correct permissions. Okay, so we've copied our link over here. We can go back to our our QGIS. I'll turn this off just so it's a bit easier to see. And let's go ahead and let's add our web feature service layer. Okay, let's create a new connection for this. And let's call it Fort Collins data. Okay, and since this is a private map, we also have to log in. So we have to write down our username and password. And that's pretty much it. So, okay, we'll click OK. This is just a warning because we've saved our password here. And let's connect here. Let's see. We also have the same one. Let's see what kind of trouble we're having with our map. Of course, the only time that you have any trouble is when you're presenting a webinar. So let's just maybe copy this again. Okay. And let's try again. So there are always a few things that you need to be wary of. You need to make sure that you prepare your data properly in order to be able to consume it here in QGIS. Okay, let's see, that's a good username and okay password. Oh, let's see, I think there's too much. Okay. Okay, let's see what is wrong over here. Of course it's not working. Okay, so to give you a brief rundown of how the Web Feature Service works. So basically, you will be able to see all of the layers that we have here. You'll be able to add this data as additional layers into QGIS. From there, of course, you'll be able to make any edits you wish. Of course, that's the whole purpose, for you to be able to utilize the robust tools that you have in QGIS to be able to edit and analyze the data that you've collected in GIS Cloud. So any change that you make there to the data itself, it will be visible to your map here in GIS Cloud as well. And of course, anything that you change here, you'll be able to see it in real time. You'll be able to see that change in real time in QGIS as well. Okay, let's maybe try it one more time with some of the information that we had before. So this is pretty much the same map that we had, but I added it just a bit earlier, and there we go. So we have our incident reporting and our parcels. Let's wait a few seconds to add it. You'll see it over here. There you go. So it was just this tool that we added before, so we were able to add it through here. So I guess QGIS is just being quirky today. Okay, so let's just zoom to our layer over here, and I'll turn off zoning just for a second so that we can see it a bit better, and maybe also make sure that this is a bit more clear so that you can see it, maybe a bigger point. Let's see. Okay. And what we can also do is show feature count so that you can see the changes that we make over there. So of course, we have all of the information now here. We are able to then go ahead and edit all of this data here. So let's maybe add a new point, and let's add it somewhere where we don't have any data yet, so it will be clear. And in this case, this is let's say the type would be a road incidents. Of course, QGIS doesn't have the form that we've created in map editors for this specific purpose. And what kind of incident might be? We might have a pothole. And let's save this for now. Okay, so of course we have to save any changes that we've made. Let's see. I guess QGIS is being a bit stubborn right now. But that's kind of the workflow that you would be doing. So you would make your changes over here, and then those changes, of course, would be visible in your map in map editor as well. Okay, I think that's kind of a good place to end our live demo. Of course, I do welcome all of you to try it out. You don't have to use the publisher to use Web Feature Service, and you don't have to use Web Feature Service to use publisher. Of course, that will always kind of depend on the project that you're working on. And of course, we would definitely love to hear, what you guys are working on. So feel free to reach out to us if you are looking for a fast and simple way to collaborate, and if you need any kind of assistance to get going. And as I mentioned, of course, you can try all of this for free. Simply create an account, go to our website, gscloud.com, and sign up there and create an account and just start mapping, start collaborating. Okay, I don't know if maybe now is a good time for us to maybe switch to a Q&A. If there's a question, I don't know if Pravin and Dave, you'd like to maybe jump in.
Sure, thank you. That was very good. I'll start. I have a question. For the mobile data collection piece, is there a requirement for an operating system, or it works both on the Android or Apple?
It works on both, so iOS and Android. It works on phones, on tablets. So whatever it is that you're using, I'm sure it'll be fine.
And also, can you speak to the audience about the deployment? Is it a subscription? And how are concerns for the agency's data being addressed?
Sure. So it's very simple and fast to deploy. So all you really have to do is create an account and start using the applications. Kind of the main one is map editors, so you'll probably be using that one for sure. You can create additional users within your organization that can kind of help you better organize things, especially when it comes to subscriptions. It is a subscription-based model for the platform, and really it just depends on how many users you have and how long you plan on using it, of course. If you at any point need any help, figuring out what the best combination of applications is, we can always help you out with that, suggest a few things and make sure that you're properly onboarded and able to use the apps. Of course, the kind of, if you're just looking for data collection, that's very simple. All you need to do to get started is to create a form, and really it's just a matter of selecting different field items that you'd like to have. So let's say you would like to have like a predefined select list and maybe a photo, and maybe you want to make sure that you know who collected that data. So you'll also collect their username, and of course you'll collect the location, and maybe you want them to be able to write something down like an address or anything like that. So very easy to start. And in terms of the data itself and how it's stored, of course, all of that is your data. It's stored on our servers. Everything is, of course, private if you want it to be. If you want to make something public, you can do that as well. We, of course, are fully GDPR compliant, so we don't share your data with anyone else. If you do require any additional level of security, there is always the option of setting up an on-premise solution, or what you can also do is use your own PostGIS database or Oracle database and connect your own database directly to GIS Cloud. So that kind of maybe takes us out of the kind of middleman position. So you're not storing the data on our servers, you're storing it on your GIS database, but you're still consuming it over there.
Thank you. Thank you. Opening it to the floor. Anybody, any questions for Barbara?
Thanks, Praveen. This is G.
Hey.
Hey. Thank you so much, Barbara. I guess it's related to that. Can you deploy this instead of on-premise to, say, a private, like you said, but not necessarily private, let's say GovCloud on either AWS or I think the Azure Cloud for government. So we do a lot of work with government, and we have a requirement that this needs to be secure. So just question around kind of extending that further on that train of thought that Praveen had. Thank you.
Yeah, that would definitely be, like a custom solution. It's not something that's out of the box connectable, but of course, we can definitely provide that extra step, so no problem.
I have one more request. If you can, if possible, can you show us the form and to get a sense of how easy it is to customize it?
Sure, no problem. So there are basically two ways that you can create a form. They're both very simple. The kind of main difference really is whether you're kind of starting with the data from scratch or you're already working on an existing data set. So why don't I'll go ahead and show you our very simple tool for creating and customizing your data collection forms. You can basically define it based on what data you want to collect. So I have a couple of examples here. Maybe I can show you just one as a preview of the finished product. So you have all of the things that you want to collect. So predefined values and photos and select lists and recordings and all of that. But even the setup itself is really simple because you just need a few minutes to create everything and you're good to go. It's done either through our data collection portal or through Map Editor as well. And all you need to do is choose which form fields you want to have. So let's say you want to have a text field. Maybe this would be something like an address. You also want to collect date and time. So you choose date and time. And let's say this will be date, just date. And that's pretty much it. You choose what type of field you want to have. And there's quite a large number that you can choose from, as you can see here. Some very important tools are included here, such as these predefined lists. So that also helps you to kind of maintain data quality. So if you're, collecting what type of incident it is, you want to be able to later maybe filter out specific ones. So you want them to be able to have a predefined list of possible options so that it kind of saves you time later on, ensures that your data is always correct. So maybe we can, create a select list. I'll go ahead and just add ABC just as an example. But of course, you can fully customize it to whatever it is that you're collecting. And maybe let's add like a photo and signature. And then we can also maybe include some of the items that are automatically collected. So they won't have to write down their username for every single feature they collect, but this will be done automatically for them. Or if you want to know, for example, accuracy, it will tell you whether they collected it with a GPS or whether they just kind of zoomed in to the location with our pinpoint tool and collected it like that. So you can know whether someone was actually at the location. And of course, if accuracy is important to you, you can also connect an external GNSS device to make sure that it's even more accurate than it is. And of course, it's just a matter of defining what information you want to collect. You can always go back to it and adjust it if needed. And a couple of other tools that you have here is that you can make some of these fields required or persistent to both make it easier for the collector to make sure that they've collected everything they need to, but also maybe to shorten the form from them in terms of adding the dependencies. So hiding certain questions or opening them up based on some previous answers. What's also great about it is that you can collect both points, lines, and polygons. So whatever it is that you're collecting, you'll be able to do that. And let's call this a new project. And that's pretty much it. You're all good to go. You can go ahead and create one. Let's see, photo and signature. We have to have a name, of course. And we create a project and we have our form preview. Of course, this form can be as long as you'd like it to be, or it can be just a short one like this. So you can just kind of mix and match the fields that you have, and then have in the end something as complex as this, where you have a number of different questions for the end user. And you can see I can always kind of go back to that and make changes to it if I want to. So really, how much it will take you to create the form just depends on whether your form is long or not.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. If nobody has any other questions, or if you wish to, you can always email us your questions and we can forward them to Barbara. But thank you, Barbara. This was very helpful, very informative. Appreciate your time, and thank you all for attending. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the afternoon.
Thank you again for inviting us, and I hope that you'll join us in GIS Cloud. So feel free to create an account, get started, and definitely, as Brian said, if you want to send any questions to them or directly to us, you can reach out to me or anyone from the team as well, and we'd be happy to help you out.